Welcome back. All right, it's time for a panic index. Now, we're only a week out till Christmas, so it's the last one I'm going to do before Christmas. So I'm wearing the Saint Nick jersey that I got from Geeky Jerseys. Normally, I wear my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy one because it says "Don't panic" on it. But I think there's a "Don't panic" vibe when you see a picture of Santa Claus. People don't generally panic when they see, unless I mean, there's the Art the Clown as anyway. But yeah, so today I'm doing this a little bit different. So we've got the very happy at the top, the happy here, concern level is here, panic is here, and then just let it burn is here. Because it feels like in a couple of locales, maybe anger doesn't quite cover it. And then there's the phone down here for teams that are just waiting for the draft lottery. I'm also putting the trap magnet here because the teams that are pretty happy in this area generally are also teams that you have to worry about if you're a top team, that they might be relaxed, they might be pretty happy in general, and you have to worry about them maybe pulling off an upset. All right, so we'll start with New Jersey, and I've got these by the division. We're starting with the Metro today. New Jersey has no reason to be anywhere other than at the very top, which is very, very different from where they were last year. Last season was a trial for them. This year, it's been a lot of fun to watch New Jersey and see as the team has grown into their role as a contending team once again. Still a long season. There's a lot of games left to be played, but in terms of the overall play, New Jersey's been very, very good. The New York Islanders, this one's tough. The Islanders are 2 games below NHL 500, but they've only won 12 games out of, 33 now? So, I mean, I'm tempted to put them next to Panic. I am tempted, and I'm going to do so. And so, yeah, I do feel like there's definitely a reason for some panic. Patrick Waugh talking about, not seeing fight back from his players being the one thing that he gets frustrated with. And then last night against Carolina, there wasn't really that much fight back. And so that's a feature for certain teams in this division. We'll get to the other ones. But, yeah, the New York Islanders, I do think there's a reason for panic there. Washington, they have lost back-to-back games. I'm not going to bump them down to the next level. I'm not going to do it. Washington still belongs at the top of the board. Losing back-to-back is frustrating. Definitely the loss against Chicago was a surprise, to me anyways. But yeah, for the Washington Capitals, I don't see any reason not to have them in the top row. A 2-game losing streak is not a reason to bump a team down on this board. The power rankings might be a bit of a different story, but we'll shuffle the power rankings aside until Saturday, while they post on the channel Sunday morning. But yeah, Washington still at the top of the board. The New York Rangers into that just kind of let it burn territory. I do feel like at this point Ranger fans are frustrated enough that if the team came out and said, so we might move anybody, I think fans would be okay with it. The one thing is the problem really the locker room, or is Chris Drury just making everything so much worse? Because when all of this started and the talk of the Rangers making big changes came out, the record was pretty good. They've absolutely fallen apart since then. And so I do think there's something there in terms of player satisfaction being low, leading to them being on that part of the board. Carolina, I'm going to put them here. I'm not going to put them at the top of the board, but I don't see any reason not to have them here. It's been getting better lately, and it just seems like they're trending in the right direction once again. So Carolina, I'm going to put them there. They've had a bit of a rough patch recently, but it looks like they're coming out of it. And there's no doubt that Carolina is a playoff team at the very least, and also we can have that argument over their contendership status too. Pittsburgh, I'm going to put Pittsburgh there too. Pittsburgh's been playing well lately. They got that overtime win last night against the LA Kings. And so I don't see any reason not to have Pittsburgh at a level that's higher than I think they've been all season. This is a team that we know has some bona fide Hall of Famers. This is a team that can string together some wins, as they have done recently. And they're not that far off from being a pretty good team that could make the playoffs. And I mean, like, for the rest of this season, I could see them with the right moves, with the right attitude and everything. I could see them above the playoff line and staying there. So at this point, Coach Mike Sullivan's job, I think, is pretty safe. Columbus is tough. I'm going to put, you know what? No, I'm going to put Columbus down here. Columbus has had a really rough stretch of games. I don't think we expect them to be a playoff team anyways, though. So I don't feel like it's fair to put Columbus in panic because I don't think there is panic with Columbus. There were no expectations on that team coming into this season. I'm sure that fans and players and everybody wishes that things were a little better, but yeah, Philadelphia, I don't think there's any pressure on them at this point. Philadelphia, I'm going to put Philadelphia with concern because I think their play recently has been good enough that they shouldn't be in this area, but there's still some concerns there I think with the team, so I'm going to put them right there. Philadelphia doesn't have a ton of pressure on them either, other than maybe from their coach. I think their coach expects a lot of them, which is fine. It's fine for a coach to expect a lot of his players. And yeah, the Philadelphia Flyers, I feel like concerns probably the right level. So out of the Metro, 2 at the top, 2 second level, 1, 1, 1, 1. So pretty evenly distributed. Now we get into the Central Division. Nashville. I feel like Nashville's in that kind of just let it burn kind of area as well. Their record is miserable. Last night they won that game with the Rangers, which I don't know if you get a winner out of that game. You just get a team that got a victory and got 2 points on the night. It doesn't really change much of anything, though. And it's not like it was a big lopsided game or one team played fantastic and the other one didn't. It happened. Nashville won the game. I'm still leaving them where they're at on that board. Chicago goes right here. Chicago is definitely a trap game. Washington found that out last night. Chicago just they play a very loose game. It can be entertaining to watch. It can be frustrating at times too. One thing to keep an eye on with Chicago, they've scored the first goal 20 times this season, which is the most of any team in the NHL. If they ever figure out how to protect a lead, all of a sudden Chicago could be pretty good. Ironically, they allowed the first 2 goals last night and they won the game 3-2. So maybe scoring first doesn't work for them in their overall picture. Minnesota. Does Minnesota still belong at the top? I feel like they've had some losses lately. I don't think I'm going to put Minnesota at the very top. There have been some frustrating losses. The Edmonton one comes to mind, right? And it's not the only one they've had recently either, which is, and this is where I bring up that point too, that it is very difficult to go through a full 82 game schedule without going through the kind of stuff that Minnesota's been going through recently. So Minnesota, second level for them. I think that works. Colorado, I'm putting Colorado right in the concerned area. The shutout loss against Vancouver. There's just been games like that where Colorado has, really good game where everything looks great, and then the next night, not necessarily. So Colorado, I think there's still reason for concern. I'm not going to put it at the level of panic at this point, but in the event that their goaltending doesn't necessarily hold, let's just say Blackwood has a rough next couple of weeks, Colorado could end up next to that panic magnet. Dallas is playing well enough to be there. I'm not going to put them at the very top. I don't feel like Dallas, like tonight they're at home against Toronto. Would I be surprised if they lost against Toronto? Not really. This is a team that finds ways to lose certain games, finds ways to win others. They've won more than they've lost. They're definitely going to be a playoff team. I have no idea what to expect from Dallas from one night to the next. So with that being said, I can't really put them up here because of that complete and total unpredictability from one night to the next. St. Louis, I'm going to put them back in the level of concern. Initially, upon hiring Jim Montgomery, everything looked really good. Recently, we're starting to see some of those struggles that St. Louis was having under Drew Bannister start to show up under Montgomery. I think Montgomery's a good enough coach that he can get them through it, but it will be interesting to see how St. Louis does from here. I don't think that St. Louis is panicked at this point, but yeah, concerns are there. Utah, and this is the first time I'm going to be able to use an actual Utah logo magnet. I finally got helmet decals for the Utah Hockey Club. Waited a while for those, but I finally got them. Utah, right now, they're 6-2-2. They've won, 6 in a row on the road. It's hard not to put them at the top, but I'm going to put them on that second level. I'm going to put Utah on that second level. Getting close to the top, sure. About as close to the top as you can get without being in that top row. But that's where I feel like Utah belongs at this point. They are finding ways to win games, and we'll see if that continues. Tonight, they host the Vancouver Canucks, so that'll be an interesting one. The Jets. I mean, they win last night, right? They seem to be trending in the right direction again. Since the ridiculousness of, I think since they were 15-1, they're 7-8-1, something like that, at least going into last night. But I don't feel like with Winnipeg that I can necessarily move them down. So this is where a panic index to me is different than a power rankings. Power rankings, I'm looking at how a team's been playing, their recent records, so like last 10 games, that kind of thing. And with the Jets, I do see some weakness there and some issues they have to clean up. But in terms of a panic index, is there any reason for panic? No. Is there any reason to bump them out of the top row? Not really. So that's where that's a little different. So I'm going to put the Winnipeg Jets in the top row. So 1, 3, 2, 1 here, 1 here. I skipped the panic altogether for the Central Division. So next division is the Pacific. Seattle, concerned. Seattle to me belongs in concerned. Their record is below 500. I don't think there's panic there. Their next game is tomorrow night in Chicago. So it's then that we'll see whether or not they're going to be able to turn this around. But yeah, Seattle, I'll put them as concerned. Vegas has to go in the top. They have not had, they haven't won every single game lately, but I don't see any reason not to have Vegas in the top row. They've been playing really well. Even in that loss to Edmonton, they still played well. So yeah, there's no reason for any kind of concern, which brings us to Edmonton. I feel like Edmonton belongs in the top row too. The Edmonton Oilers, I believe 8-2 in their last 10. Let me just take a look. Yep, 8-2 in their last 10. Things are going really well. The depth scoring's there. McDavid's playing fantastic. Darnell Nurse might be having the best season of his career. May very well be doing so. And Skinner's numbers have been good enough that they've had wins recently. So in Edmonton, things are about as rosy as they get. Anaheim. Anaheim to me at this point feels like they're in the trap waiting for the draft lottery category. Anaheim has managed to have some wins on the back of Lucas Dostal. They've been playing Gibson a lot lately, which honestly kind of surprises me. I do feel like Dostal's the better of the two goaltenders. But with the amount of money that Gibson makes, it makes some sense for him to get the lion's share of starts. We'll see if that continues to be the case. Maybe you're showcasing Gibson if you're Anaheim. Maybe you're showing the rest of the NHL, look, he's healthy, he's playing well, give us a call. I don't know. But either way, Anaheim is not in the hunt for a playoff spot, and that's not likely to change. Calgary. There's not really any pressure on Calgary, honestly. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10, so it's hard not to have them as concerned, but there was no expectation on Calgary before the season started. So, yeah. And, I should mention, too, the reason I went with the Letterkenny hat for the video armor or the Christmas jersey is because the Letterkenny Christmas episode might be the best Christmas episode of anything I've ever seen. It just might be. Anyways, so, yeah, Calgary, I'm going to put them as concerned. So, that's where I'm going to put them. That's their level. The LA Kings... I'm going to say LA is probably pretty happy, and this is where things are odd. There's 3 teams in the Pacific that I'm saying, yeah, there's no reason for them to have any concern at all. Things are going really, really well. The LA Kings lose that game last night, but I felt like there was some desperation from Pittsburgh that LA doesn't have right now. It's tough to match that level of desperation when you aren't really a desperate team. And so, yeah, the LA Kings, I leave them at the top row. Playing quite well, and I don't think they play over the next couple of days, do they? No, they don't. Oh, yes, they do. They play tomorrow in Philly, so that's going to be interesting. That'll be an entertaining one. 2 teams that do prefer the defensive style of game, so that's one of those ones where people are going to be like, take the under. I don't play that. San Jose, right here. There's nowhere else for me to put San Jose, and they are a trap team. Now, the one thing with San Jose, of course, is that this season they do have a couple more wins than they had at this point last season, but they've also frittered away some points against Utah and then last night against Winnipeg. Just not being able to get the game to overtime, that hurts, but there's no real pressure in San Jose. There was no expectation. Vancouver. With Vancouver, you're never too far off from panic, but I feel like their recent play should keep us in the relatively happy category. If you ignore the Boston game, they were great on both sides. They shut out Florida, they shut out Colorado. great. Just ignore the Boston game, just memory wipe it, and you're in good shape. The Vancouver Canucks end up in that second row for me. So that rounds out the Pacific Division. How does Pacific Division do? 3 in the top row, 1 in the second row, 2 in concerned, and then 2 in the bottom down here. So, yeah, there you go. So you guys soak that all in, and then we go to the final division, the Atlantic. Montreal belongs right there. So we're getting more teams in this area, it feels like, as the season goes along, which is how that works. As the season rolls along and teams fall further out of contention, you see more teams falling into that sell category. Montreal's been in the sell category, it feels like, all season, and so we'll see how things go for Montreal from here. Buffalo, and let it burn. The Buffalo Sabres, it's an 11-game winless drought. I've got video ideas to discuss the Sabres that I'm not touching at this point, but I do reserve the right over the next few days to do so. Buffalo, it's just too bad. It really is. It's too bad. They've got a good team. There's a good roster there. I don't know. I mean, the question becomes, is it the GM or is it the owner? My answer to that might be yes, because I think there's blame to go around here, but this has gone on for too long. If you started a Buffalo team from scratch in 2011, they would have made the playoffs multiple times by now. So I'm not sure how, and I'm talking, and I just mean not the Sabres. If you started a different Buffalo team, maybe that's the key. Maybe we fold the Sabres and then we bring in the Buffalo Sabres version 2, and we can just turn the Buffalo. We can make it a bright gold color full time, and just tell them, hey, you're the Gold Sabres. See if that works. Florida, I don't see any reason not to have Florida in the top row. Yeah, Florida had struggled for a couple of games. Oh no, they can't score. Yeah, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. I can't have Florida not in the top row. It doesn't work. They belong in the top row. Tampa. Does Tampa belong in the top row right now? Tampa's record over their last 10 is 7-3. Things are going pretty darn well. I kind of feel like they belong in the top row. Yeah. I mean, you've got Kucherov producing, Vasilevsky playing pretty well. When Johansson's in the net, things still go pretty well too. I don't see any reason not to have Tampa Bay in the top row right now. Toronto, one thing with Toronto, so I'm going to put them in the second row. Anytime that Toronto loses a game, it's overanalyzed. Anytime that Toronto has a win, but it's not necessarily great, it's overanalyzed. There's an overly critical media that also overcovers the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, like, after any single game where they lose, Gary Bettman's out flying something around over my house, but anytime that Toronto loses, we hear about it, and there's all this panic, and this player had a bad game, and this shift, and did you see that, and this happened, and this was bad. It's just it's overly critical, and I'm gonna put Toronto in that second row because that's where I feel like they belong. Detroit, I'm gonna put Detroit next to Panic. The Detroit Red Wings should be better than they are. They're a team that are below 500 that shouldn't be. And I still think there's a good team there. I know people disagree with me on that. But for Detroit, yeah, I feel like there's a good reason to have that sort of panic feeling, because that playoff line is going to get more and more difficult to catch as the season goes along. Boston's kind of, I'm going to put Boston here in the second row. I kind of feel like maybe there should be some concern, but there really isn't. Boston now gets to go to Edmonton. They destroyed Vancouver. They had the comeback victory last night against the Calgary Flames. So things are going pretty well for Boston. I really can't I can't find any reason to have them any lower than this. I'm not going to put them on the top row because while they've had a good record lately overall, I still feel like not quite in that on that ecstatic level yet, but getting there. And for Ottawa, there's some real optimism in Ottawa for the first time in a long time. So it does feel like right now, so I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams in the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the second row. So 17 teams in the league here or higher. Apparently, I'm getting very Christmassy, very generous with my ratings here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the concerned, 2 in panic, 3 fan bases that are probably just like, let it burn, tear it down, I don't care, whatever you're going to do, call me when it's done. And then the trap teams, I have 5 of them that I feel like are still capable of having some fun during games and going on little winning streaks here and there, although they're not playoff teams at this point. So there you go. Your panic index for December 18th, the final panic index of 2024, and the final panic index obviously before Christmas. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.